You've achieved a lot, but you're exhausted in a way that a holiday can't fix. That's not a productivity problem. That's a pattern. And that pattern has a name. If you're someone who has always delivered, always pushed, and always found a way to get things done, but you're quietly running on empty right now, then this episode is for you. Not because there's anything wrong with you, you're not a failure, there's no personal flaw. But there's something running in the background for a very long time. And this is your chance to take a look at it. You're listening to Give Yourself Some Leeway with me, your host, Eugene Lee. Now, here's what most people get wrong about burnout. They treat it as if it's a workload problem. They have too many meetings, too many deadlines. They just have too much on their plate. So the solution naturally becomes clearing that plate. Take a break. Delegate more of that work. Book a 2 week holiday. And sometimes that helps, for a little while anyway. But then you come back to work, and that plate you just cleared fills up again. Sometimes it fills up even faster than before. Because here's the thing that no one likes to say out loud: burnout isn't a workout problem, it's an identity problem. And until you understand that distinction between your workload and your identity, you can manage the symptoms forever without actually ever addressing the cause. Now, think about the traits that got you to where you are today. You have the drive, the reliability, high standards, self sufficiency, the ability to absorb pressure and still keep going. The fact that you don't complain about the work, you don't make it all about you, you just get things done. Those traits are real. And they have served you to get you to where you are today. But here is the painful irony in all of that. The very things that make you successful are the same things that make it harder for you to stop. You're too reliable to simply slow down. You're too self sufficient in order to ask others for help. You're too driven to notice that that sense of drive is coming from a place of fear, not fueled by passion or altruism or anything positive. It's coming from a place of fear. And so that pattern continues. More work gets stacked on you, either by others or drawn on by yourself. And you keep handling it until one day you can handle no more. There's a belief underneath all of this, and I want to name it directly. Once you speak it out loud, it becomes more tangible. This feeling is the price of ambition. Maybe you've said it before. Maybe you have thought about it. Maybe it's just quietly running in the back of your head like an operating system that you never chose. The idea that exhaustion is proof that you're serious about what you're doing, that depletion is just the cost of achieving things that matter. The idea that if you slow down, you'll fall behind. Or worse, you'll lose that edge that made you who you are. That belief is the high achiever's trap. Not the work that you do, not the work itself, but the story you're telling yourself about what the work means. And that's what we're going to get into today. So there are three specific ways that high achievers get caught in this trap. And I want to walk through all three because most people recognize at least one of them immediately. And one of them will probably stop you halfway, so pause if you need some time to address which one really strikes a nerve with you. The first one I call the performance identity trap. And here's how it works. At some point, probably early on in your career, or maybe before, it was in school, or it could be from your parents, you learned that your value was connected to your output. the work you do. Maybe you were the smart one, the responsible one, the one who always came through, and you got praised for that, rewarded for it, maybe even promoted because of it. So naturally, because your input is recognized with an output of appreciation and reward, you do more of it. And for some time, it works. Until you get to a point where your identity becomes inseparable from your performance. Until slowing down doesn't feel like you're being unproductive. It feels like you're being incongruent with who you are. It feels like you're disappearing. You're invalidating yourself. Like if you stop delivering, you stop mattering. That's no longer about your ambition or your drive. That's a state of fear. It's a state of survival. And it's exhausting in a way that any amount of rest or time off work cannot touch. Because the problem isn't about how much work you're doing. It's about what you believe about yourself when you're not doing the work. Now, in the leeway method, the framework that I like to use, the first phase is called uncover. And this is exactly what we uncover in the first phase. It's the story that you're running on, the one that says that your worth is earned, not inherent to who you are. That story that tells you that stopping is dangerous. Because until you name that story, you can't change how it is in your life. The second high achieving trap is the invisible ceiling. The higher you climb, the less permission you feel you have to struggle. Now let's think about it. When you were earlier in your career, it was acceptable for you not to have everything all together. You were allowed to make mistakes that you could learn from. You could figure things out. You could ask for help. But now, in a senior position, you're seen as the leader. People look toward you for your expertise. And somewhere along the way, you stop seeing other people at your level talk honestly about how hard this work is. Not because they're fine, but because nobody who burned out along the way is going to talk about it. So you look around and everyone seems to be managing. Everyone seems to be doing just fine and not talking about the struggles, the failures, how they learn. And that assumption keeps you silent. And that silence keeps you stuck. It leaves you isolated inside this version of success that may look great from the outside, but it feels completely hollow and stuck in a rot on the inside. The third step is the recovery paradox. And this is the one I find the most important because it's the one that keeps people stuck for the longest. Now, most people, when they finally acknowledge that they've burned out, they try to fix it by removing themselves from their environment. When I burned out, I was given 4 weeks off of work to get back to normal. That was the common practice. Take 4 weeks off out of the work environment to recover and get back to normal. So, removing yourself from the work environment, be it a long weekend, a 2 week holiday, or a sabbatical, maybe it's 6 months off, those things matter. Now, please don't hear me saying that they don't matter, but they don't fix it inherently because the pattern isn't in the environment. The pattern is in you. It's in the way that you relate to the pressure, to the rest, to your own worth. It's in that inner narrative that runs whether you're at your desk in the office or sitting on the beach in Portugal. The treadmill doesn't turn off just because you leave the office. Going back to when I left for 4 weeks from work, it wasn't a state of going back to normal, my mind was still running at 90 and it wanted to do everything it could in order to get back to normal. So I Googled, what does it take to recover from burnout? Found a list of 40 things and started doing these 40 different things, try and speed run through this burnout thing so I could get back to whatever normal was. My mind didn't switch off. It left me feeling guilty that I put my work on other people, that others would feel that I am slacking off. I had never taken so much time off work in my whole career before. And that was the internal narrative that made 4 weeks off work feel like torture. So if you don't turn off that treadmill, all of that office work, that mindset, that framework, that narrative, it comes with you. And until you address that narrative that's running internally, your recovery stays at a surface level. You cannot have deep recovery from the burnout because you will just get restless. You want to get back into the work. You come back from the holiday, you're 2 weeks in Portugal, and you're right back where you were. The pattern resets again. Not because you didn't rest enough, but because the framework, the storyline that you had yourself, that operating software, nothing about that had changed. So, the one thing I want to leave with you today is I want you to write this down because I feel this is important if you have not done any internal narrative work before. And it's that the trap isn't the work, it's the story that you're telling yourself about what the work means. That story that your worth is your output, that stopping is dangerous, that you should be able to handle all of this alone. That story is not your truth. It is not about you. It's something that you have learned over time. And whatever you learn can also be unlearned. It can be replaced with a new truth that is congruent with who you are now. It may have served you before, but if it's no longer serving you, you can unlearn it and learn something new. But only once you can see it clearly. That's what this podcast has always been about. Give Yourself Some Leeway is not about productivity hacks, having extensive 4 hour long morning routines. It's about the inner work that actually changes how you live with a framework that works because it starts with the truth of where you actually are on your journey, not a narrative that no longer serves you, not where you think you should be, but starting from where you are and changing the story. If this landed for you, if something in the last 10 or 12 minutes felt uncomfortably familiar, I don't want you to stop right there. I want you to take one step. Head over to giveyourselfsomeleeway.com and download the Burnout self-assessment quiz. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes. And it tells you exactly where you are in your burnout cycle. What is your pattern? So you're not guessing anymore. It gives you that first step and tells you where you actually are. Not about the version that other people have told you about, that other people see you as on the outside, the real one. Until next time, take care.